What's up everybody, and welcome to today's Tableau walkthrough. In this video, we're going to use table calculations. So you may be wondering, what are table calculations? A table calculation is a transformation you apply to values in a visualization. Table calculations are a special type of calculated fields that computes on the local data in Tableau. They are calculated based on what is currently in the visualization and does not consider the measures or dimensions that are filtered out of your visualization. You can use table calculations to show rankings, show running totals, even show percent of totals. And for any Tableau visualization, it has a virtual table that is built in based on the dimensions in a particular view. And like I said, I really enjoy tables, and I love the functionality and the quick table calculations that Tableau provides. And so let's get into it. There's two things you need to do before we get started. The first thing is to open your Tableau application. The second thing is to connect to your data source. So we're going to be using the sample superstore data source, and how you get to that sample superstore data source is you navigate to the left panel where connect is, scroll all the way down to save data sources, and click sample superstore. So I'm going to click it. And the first thing we have to do to get started is to create a table. So the table that we're going to create today is the sales by order date. So let's first add our order date. We're going to add order date to the columns first. So if we go to the data pane, click order date, drag that to the column shelf, it will default to the year. Then the next thing we're going to do is drag order date to the rows. It's going to default to year again, but we want to look at the quarter. Let's hit the drop down arrow, scroll down to quarter. Then now we have the quarter. And the next thing we want to do is get a little bit more granular and look at the month of the data as well. Now we have just a simple table, but we don't have any values. So the values that we actually want to add is sales. So we're going to navigate to our data pane, click on the sales, or type sales in the search bar, which I'm going to do that here. Then you'll see sales pop up. I'm going to drag that into the marks card. Drag it into text under the marks card. Let go. So now that we have our table, let's go into creating table calculations. To create a table calculation, you need to navigate to the marks card. Right next to the variable that you want to do the table calculation on, you hit the drop down arrow. Then you scroll down to add table calculation, or you can do a quick table calculation. But however, we want multiple different options and more advanced options. So we're going to add table calculation. And then you have a pop-up window where you have the calculation type, the compute using. Then we have relative to. So that's relative to either the previous, the next variable, the first variable in our partition, or the last variable in our partition. But we're going to keep everything the same other than just the compute using, because maybe you want to get a specific and more in-depth understanding on what compute using is actually doing. So the first one, and the default one that it automatically goes to, is across. And what this is actually doing is it's finding the difference between the variables across. So if I zoom in here, and we see this table, what this is actually doing is for each month and quarter, you're doing the values across, you're doing the values across, and you're calculating the difference. The next table calculation that we're going to look into is computing using the table down. So if I click this table down calculation does the length of the table and restarts after every partition. Our partition in this particular case is the year. So let me zoom in. So to do this calculation, it's going to go down, restart, go down again, and continue on until it gets to 2024. The one calculation after table down is table across, then down. What this calculation does is it computes across the rows of the table and then down to the length of the table. So if you want to visually see that, it will start from January, go down, go back here, go to February, then come back down to March, and it'll continue on until it gets to December. The next compute type is table down then across. So when you're doing table down and across, you're doing what is called the length of the table and then across on the rows. So to visually see this, you will start by 2021, scroll down, do the calculation there, difference, go back up to 2022, go down, and you continue doing that approach until you go from 2023 to 2024 for this particular case. Now we're done with compute using table. Now we're going to navigate to compute using pan. And a pan in Tableau, and specifically in reference to tables, it's the way the data is actually segmented or partitioned. And if you look at this particular table, the segment of this particular data is the quarter and the year. So this is considered our pan for this data. So how do we do a table calculation for pan down? If we click pan down under compute using, it highlights the pan that is actually computing. But the way it's doing this calculation is if you look at 2021, it's going down, and this particular pan is going to stop at quarter one. Scroll down, does the calculation for that. Scroll down, does the calculator for quarter three, and then ends with the calculation for quarter four. And it does that for each individual year in our data set. If we're talking about using pan across then down, very similar to table across and down, but in our pan. So it's highlighted our pan, but let's say we want to zoom in. Let's look at the data. So we go across here, get the differences, go back down, come here, and then scroll again and here. And it does that for every individual pan in our data set. The next one is pan down, then across. So to do the pan down, then across calculation, it visually looks similar to this. So if we start for 2021, go down, come back up, 2022, go down, come back up to 2023 and go down, and it'll continue to do that for each individual pan in our data set. The last thing that we want to talk about is the cell calculation. So the cell, it just computes whatever value based on the cell. And in this particular case, when we do the computation and click on cell, it's going to be 0, which is not very helpful for our data visualization. But if you continue to do this, like for any different calculation type, it will pretty much either do 0 or 1. And if you get to sum, it will be a little bit hard to create a useful result. But I know I went through these pretty fast, but maybe you actually care about these particular calculation types depending on what your visualization is. So I'm going to go back to table across, and we've already been doing difference from. But let's say instead of difference from, we want the percentage. We feel like the percentage would actually be a better calculation. So we just click the percent difference from. And this will give us the percentage difference in sales per month and quarter. And then if we do percent from, this is just the percent from, not the difference, just the percentage from the sales. The next thing is the percent from the total. So the total sales, each row, at least for this particular case when we're doing table across, should equal 100. The summation should equal 100. Then we can also rank the values. So we can rank the values across based on the particular value, either descending or ascending value. So if we do descending, of course, it's going to be from largest to smallest. Ascending is going to be from smallest to largest. And the competition value means that what I think about when I think of competition, I think of SQL language. This is similar to the dense rank function. The difference is you have 1, 2 second places, and then it skips the third one and goes to the fourth. However, in the modified competition, if there's a tie in the second place, it will go to actually third place. They'll both be considered third place. And then we have the dense, which what I was referring to was dense rank in SQL, is you don't skip a value at all. You always have 1, 2, 3, 4, so forth and so on, till you get to your last value. And then unique, it'll figure out a way to break a tie. So it's going to automatically change the values. The other thing is percentile. So it's going to be a computation of adding all these particular values to a percentile rank based on the data set. And then the running total is what we've already have talked about. It's just a calculation of the sum of sales over time until you get to the final result. Then the moving calculation is based on a previous value. So it's going to either moving calculation based on how many values that were actually before it compared to the current or whatever value you decide to choose. So now you have familiarity with table calculation. Let's call this sheet Table Calc for short. Thank you for watching this particular video. I'll see you in the next one.